Hi, and welcome to Two CPAs and the Mic, the podcast where we talk tax, finance, and all things related to business. Whether you're a business owner, working professional, or someone who wants to start a career in accounting, this is the podcast for you. Hosted by CCK Strategies partners Jeff Frable and Sarah Mays, we dive into relevant business and tax matters with working professionals to make these topics less intimidating, relatable, and dare we say fun? Let's get down to business.
Welcome back to another episode of Two CPAs and the Mic. I say it every time, but we are very happy you are joining us today. We are here to cover relevant business, tax, and accounting topics in a way that we apply straight talk, practical information, and maybe even some humor without all the jargon and stuffiness that's normally associated with the CPA profession and industry. So like I said, we're glad you joined us today. Have my trusty co-host, Sarah. What's up, Maze?
Good day, sir. How are you?
Are we doing British accents today?
We're being very formal today.
We are. Well, that won't allow me the opportunity to use my British accent in Govda. So I know it's really bad. I got a funny story about that in Disney World I can tell you sometime, but I'll let that go for today. But Sarah, glad you're here. Christy's with us. Hi, Christy.
Morning. Hello, team. Hello.
Always good to have you with us, our in-house producer who keeps us on the straight and narrow. Make sure we're always staying straight with the brand, consistent with the brand and the message. So appreciative of you. And we have a special guest today, John Bundren. Hi, John.
How's it going, Jeff? Hey, Sarah.
Going well.
Hey, John.
Going well. We're going to introduce you formally in a second, but today we're talking about client advisory services. We're talking about what that is, who it impacts, why it's important, and how it's developed in our profession over the years. You might have previously referred to it as bookkeeping and accounting, but it's grown into so much more. And John is our divisional leader. He lives down in Frisco. He's an expert on the topic. And so, like I said, we're here to talk about who this impacts, why it's important, how to get the most out of it as a business owner. And we're so thankful to have John today. But introductions. I'm Jeff Frable. I've been a partner here at CCK Strategies for 20 of my 25 years. My trusty cohort, Sarah.
Cohort?
Cohort and co-host.
We're just going to have a little name change there. Yes, I'm Sarah Mays. I've been with CCK going on 19 years. I think, Jeff, you're going on 26, right?
Yes, in August. But you don't get any presents for 26 years. It's only for 25.
So you're going to keep it on the 5?
Keep it on 5.
Yes. I've am one of the newest partners here at CCK, and I've been here in the partner role for 6 months.
Yeah, you're going on 7 months, which is really cool.
Crazy.
I mean, it just seems like yesterday you had only been a partner for 2 months.
Right? Yes. And then
John, and you want me to introduce John?
no, you go. I was just
I thought I was doing it this
Do
time. John, that's a little bit of history. I got reprimanded an episode or two ago for not giving over the reins to Sarah. So I'm just giving it back to her. We have John Bundren with us. John is the director of our Client Advisory Services Department down in Frisco. John, we're happy to have you today. Would you just give us a brief intro? Who is John? And why should anyone listening to this podcast listen to anything you have to say?
Well, I hate to start by correcting you, Jeff, but I'm from Frisco, but I currently live in Fort Worth. So shout out to
another F.
That's right. Shout out to Fort Worth.
Isn't that just one big city down in Texas?
No, it is not. No, it is not.
Ooh,
Dallas tries
I
to.
just feel the fighting already coming.
Yeah.
From
I know. I think John's going to come through the the screen.
Yeah.
But no, I'm not wearing a cowboy hat at the moment. So get that stereotype out of here.
Yeah.
So I, like you said, lead the client advisory services at CCK. I've been with CCK for almost a year now, which is kind of crazy to say because it feels like I just got here. But I joined in August of last year after connecting with Christy last summer, which was fun because truth be told, this is probably not the best way to start out a CAS episode. But whenever Christy and I first connected, I did not know what CAS meant. And now I am.
Neither did I.
here I am leading the CAS division. I was a user of CAS and had experienced CAS. I just did not know it was called CAS. And so part of the podcast today will be going into what does it mean when people say CAS? Again, what does that stand for? What does that mean for clients? What does that mean for accountants? So hopefully I can answer a lot of those questions and also hopefully get interest in the CAS field within accounting, because I do think there is just a lot of fun things happening in the CAS world.
So, John, one of the things we talk about all the time is how God connects dots and how CCK is a place to land. Give us just a little bit of background. You said you were a user of CAS, but what's your background really in, and how did you land at CCK?
Yeah, so I'm gonna go back even further than just my career. Growing up, one of the things my dad always taught us was keep your options open, is one of his catchphrases. And so when I went to Texas A&M, that was one of the things I thought through is how do I keep my options open? And so I went to the business school because I felt like that was a pretty generic but important field to study. And then within business, accounting was one I chose because every business needs accountants, whether you're a hospital, a oil and gas company, a manufacturer, you need an accounting department, or at least you need accounting services, whether that's in-house or outsourced. And so to me, accounting was a field that I was like, I know there's a need for this in the market and in the world. And this keeps my options open. And I can take this and I can go pursue my passions with the technical skills of accounting. So that's kind of where I first started getting interested in accounting. And then at A&M, I did what they call the PPA program, which is a 5-year master's program. Started my career at Ernst & Young doing assurance work in the Dallas office. Quickly realized Big Four is not my jam. Some people love it. Wasn't for me. And so then I went industry pretty briefly before actually getting fired from a job doing industry accounting at an oil and gas company. That's a story for another day. Yeah. Great experience, honestly. If you have never been fired, I recommend it. It's very humbling. You learn a lot about yourself.
John, CCK,
I've already been fired.
They would not know what you're talking about. I'm tracking.
All right. And so, Jeff, my background's unique because after my 2 accounting jobs I started my career in, I took kind of a long hiatus and spent 6 years in the tech world with a company called AppDynamics. And within that job, I used a lot of my accounting skills because I was in operations and just supporting the sales team. And so working with like our revenue recognition team and stuff like that. But then towards the end of that stint at AppDynamics, spent 2 years being customer facing in the client experience organization. So I was doing renewals and then customer success. And so a lot of what I bring into CAS at CCK is tapping into some of those experiences and some of the things I learned within client experience. And so my team has heard me say it many times, but the client experience and how they experience working with our team is hugely important to me. Obviously, the technical side of it and what we're actually doing and doing it correctly is the most important. But second to that is what is the experience and the relationship we have with our clients. After that role, spent 2 years working or leading finance and operations for a small executive search firm in the Dallas area. And then CCK came knocking. Christy was one of my first conversations. And again, when we first interviewed and met, she was talking about CAS and I was over on the side Googling like, what is CAS? Because I just never heard of it. But in the role leading up to CCK, we had an outsourced bookkeeper and a fractional CFO. So again, I was a user of CAS, but I did not know it was called CAS. So probably a good place to start of kind of what that is. But that's a little bit about my background and how I landed at CCK.
Well, great, John. And one of the most important things you kind of didn't really spend a whole lot of time talking about is I know you are an Aggie, Texas A&M. And so when you said A&M, I know in Oklahoma it's either Boomer or Go Pokes. What do they say in Aggieville?
Aggieville, wow. Gig 'em Aggies, Jeff.
Gig 'em
Aggies.
Gig 'em Aggies. Right. Okay, right. Well that's good to know.
It's just a small little school down in College Station. Just a
small,
tiny,
so tiny.
It's awesome. Well, I know anytime that comes up.
I'm going to bring in. I just want to say thank you for the plug for the accounting profession. In general, I mean, I think that is amazing that you were like, hey, just to keep my option open and everybody needs an accountant. Did you hear that, world? Everybody needs an accountant.
It's true.
Whether they know it or not,
Yes.
whether they want to admit it or not. They
Right.
someone like us. So,
Kidding.
Well,
What a
John,
lot of
thank-
wisdom for such a young guy, too. I want to point
Right.
that out.
well,
Yes.
and notice where he got it. He got it from his dad or his parents.
Yeah.
You know, and that's part of my story as well. So, young people out there, listen to your parents so they know what they're doing. So, John, you kind of alluded to it. Let's jump into it. And just for clarification, I wanted to say before, but forgot. When we do refer to CAS, we are referring to Client Advisory Services, CAS. So let's start off. What is CAS and how has it been developing in our industry over the last few years?
Yeah, great question. So CAS, CAS, or some people say CAAS, I would say for every firm, it looks a little bit different, but ultimately what they're doing is meeting the needs of their clients and trying to meet a need in the market, which is obviously how any good practice or business should start, right? You should identify a need and then go meet that need. And so CAS, Client Advisory Services, is how we use that at CCK. Some firms will call it Client Accounting Services. Some will call it Client Accounting and Advisory Services, the AA. So they're all kind of in the same bucket of what they mean, just might look a little bit different based on what firm you talk to. But the easiest way to describe it is it's outsourced accounting and finance. And so for CCK, what that means is everything from the foundational bookkeeping, helping categorizing, advising clients on what to do with their transactions, all the way up through fractional CFO work, forecasting, FP&A, controllership, that type of stuff. And so kind of everything in between, we bucket underneath what we call client advisory services. And again, it is broad. The needs of our clients are broad. Each client has a different need and a different pain point they're trying to solve for. And so you can't just have a one size fits all approach to it. And that is, we'll get into it a little bit later, but that is why we take a lot of due diligence on the front end with clients to understand what is that pain point and what is that need. And again, are we the best team to go help solve that or not?
So one of the things I was kind of Googling about, because I'll admit I don't know for sure, but we have been, as we've been developing or taking this program to a higher level with your addition to the firm, we've been referring to it as CAS 2.0. Is that a CCK term or is that an industry term?
Yes and no. So there is, if you talk to the AICPA and some of the other global US-based accounting conglomerates, I would call them, there is a widespread CAS 2.0 shift. Not everyone is using that. And we often don't even use that terminology with clients. And so when you're in the accounting world, you may hear CAS 2.0. Within CCK, you will certainly hear CAS 2.0, but it's not a universal everywhere. It's dependent on the firm as well.
So why is this process important? Before we get into kind of the details of the process we go through, why is this process in general important and who benefits the most from this work?
Yeah, honestly, both parties benefit a lot. I would say the client benefits more. Let's back up real quick. So at CCK, when we say CAS 2.0, there's a few things we mean by that, and that's going to help kind of answer that question. So there are three qualifiers that we put on something being considered 2.0. One is it's consistent recurring work. Okay. So it's not a ad hoc project. It's not a one-time cleanup.
It's not cleanup. Yeah.
Right. We have a consistent, and when we say cleanup for the less accounting savvy people, oftentimes clients will come to us, they need their taxes done or they need something else done, but their books are in shambles. And so we can come in and do, again, what we call a cleanup. We're just going back in time, getting their books corrected and cleaned up so that we can actually use them and trust them, whether that's for filing taxes or for a bank purposes or whatever it might be. So the first qualifier at CCK is it is recurring work. So it has to be consistent work that we have scoped out in the engagement letter. The second one for us that we qualify is we need to be meeting with the client on a consistent basis. So whether that's monthly or quarterly, there's a very high touch relational aspect to CAS 2.0 at CCK. And then the last one for us is the client needs to be forward thinking. So they need to be users of their financials and be using that to make decisions and to understand their business and figuring out how do we take this business forward. If they are working with us purely for compliance reasons or purely to file taxes, but they don't actually want to use the financials to like look forward, that is not a CAS 2.0 client and not one we would work with kind of under the new model.
What if a client doesn't have any forward? I mean, when you first meet with them and you can tell they're not forward thinking.
Yeah.
Are you helping coach that? And I mean, just to like identifying qualifiers that like, you're not forward thinking, but I think if you get here and think about this, then we can. And is that truly like a matchup to where you would be willing to coach to get them into that space?
Yeah, for sure. There are some clients who they aren't forward thinking because they don't know how to be forward thinking. And so those are ones where we can come alongside them and say, hey, you may not have been using your financials for this purpose to run your business, to forecast, to look into the future and figure out what decisions to make now that's going to help the direction of your business. And so that's an opportunity where we can show them, hey, if we take your like something as simple as taking a financial statement, which is just a bunch of numbers on a spreadsheet or in a PDF, and making it visual, right? So that they can understand graphically kind of the month over month trend of where they've been. That's like a very easy step to start to add value to that relationship with the client to where they can have a better understanding of their business simply by taking something that is already there, but helping them understand what it means and putting it in a format that they can understand it better, via a graph, right? That's a very simple thing to do, but that's something where the client can look at it and say, oh, I didn't realize, last May we had this huge dip in sales, but now I understand it better because I can see it a lot better. And again, that's the kind of thinking where you start to take that information and say, great, how do we plan ahead? Was last May a unique situation or is every May like that? Right. So you can start to think through, how do I plan my cash reserves accordingly if I'm going to have another bad May this year? But we certainly will coach and help clients understand how they can use their information if they have that interest. And some of them just don't know that's possible or just don't know how to do that. Others are just purely not interested, right? Either their business is so healthy and growing so much, they just don't care. And we've had some of those. And, hey, that's great, right? You're humming along, you're making money. You don't really care to make decisions differently. That's fine. They may come around in the future if things start to not work out that way. But again, we never want to force kind of this new model onto clients. It's always identify if there's a need, and then if we can meet that need, we'll do our best to do so. I don't know if that answered your question, Sarah, but
yes, I have a few more, but I know Christy. I think Christy.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. I do. So much of what CCK, John, when you and I first started talking, one of I think the coolest attributes about the firm that's probably what sets us apart. Other firms strive to do more of this, but it's really that approach. We have so much more of a consultative advisory approach. And people are thinking, well, is that advisory? Is that, well, in tax assurance, in CAS, BV, technology, any type of coaching that we do, our focus on the client is really having that consultative approach. And it starts with a conversation and asking those questions that nobody ever asks.
Yep.
And I think one of the coolest experiences watching clients ponder, and it's almost as if we see that light bulb going off. It sounds like from what you're saying is that's part of your process to help them identify some of those areas that I've never been asked. Nobody has ever I've never even thought of it that way. And so going back to Sarah's initial, can you teach people to be a little bit more strategic or forward thinking in how they view their business in ways that it's not just transactional, but creating a vision and prompting the question where they're creating some vision? So do you do some of the vision casting with them? I guess is really what I'm curious about.
we do. And we'll get to this when we talk about discovery and what that looks like for CAS at CCK. But part of our kind of due diligence process when we're talking to a new client are asking those questions. And that may be the magic wand question of, you know, hey, if you could change anything and wave the magic wand, what would it be? That starts to identify what are the pain points that they want to solve but don't know how to solve. That could be a question of, hey, what is your wish list? You know, if you're talking to us, your potential accounting firm, if you could have anything you wanted to, right? What's your wish list? What do you wish you could have in front of you on a consistent basis? Again, to help you make better decisions and lead your business, but you just don't have that yet or don't know how to get that. And so, yes, we certainly do. And in our discovery process, a lot of it is identifying what's kind of the ideal state and what you're trying to solve for, you know, and what are some KPIs we can identify early on.
Ooh, what's a KPI?
Oh, KPI, acronym time. Key performance indicator. Good question, Sarah.
Yeah.
Yep, key performance indicator. So again, that could be cash flow this week. That could be number of new leads. That could, you know, there's a lot of things that could be. But again, it's a metric that which you use to track your business and again, show your key performance, right? That's where it gets its name. And so we're identifying these KPIs in the discovery process that we can then build into our engagement moving forward. And again, that's a really easy way to add value to the clients is helping them think through that. And we have a lot of clients who, as we're asking these questions, they sit there and they ponder and they're like, I've never been asked that. I've never thought about that. And so even the process itself is adding value because you're helping them understand and think through their business in a way they haven't before.
So, John, as we kind of transition from kind of an introductory segment into the key components of the life cycle, what I'm hearing also is that there's, just like in tax, you have firms and organizations that just kind of put numbers on a return and spit it out and get it done, put no effort or thought into it. It's similar with CAS. There's the more kind of traditional compliance work, which is just clean up the financials or update them and spit them out. And here you go, look at them if you want.
Right.
Versus this CAS 2.0 or a more developed and what's what I'm looking for, more sophisticated version of it where we will
That's a good word.
Sophistication.
Yes.
We will work through the reporting with you. We will ask questions. We will project. We will discuss those kind of things to help you manage your business versus just giving you a document.
Right. And that's why the A in CAS is advisory for us, right? It's not just accounting, it's advisory. It's advisory via the avenue of accounting, right? We're not advising, our team is not advising on tax strategies that we leave that to you guys. So y'all are the experts there. And we're not advising on other pieces of their business or whatever that might be, but we're advising through the lens and context of accounting or
it goes
finance.
Back, right. And it goes back to being a trusted business advisor in various areas, not just one subject.
Right. And the beauty of having a firm that has both or multiple service lines under one roof is that you're not siloed. I mean, you said I'm not advising on tax, I'm not advising on assurance or anything like that. And whereas a tax accountant is not advising on client advisory service work. However, under the same umbrella, we're working together. Right. So the information that you're coming across as you're talking to clients, you're passing that along, or that person's in the same meeting with you, that tax advisor or that assurance advisor.
Right. That's where we say, that's a great question. Let me go talk to Sarah Mays because she's an expert in that area.
Right. That's right.
Versus, I don't know, go talk to your tax accountant, right? And that's part of the value of it being under the same umbrella. It's a great call out, Sarah, is they're working with one team.
Yes.
You know, and we have a lot of internal synergy, if we can use that word, that you
we're
don't
using good words today.
Yeah, we're real
it.
smart. But a lot of internal synergy when we can work together versus, again, we're working with their internal person here and their tax person over here, and then we're doing this, and there's another firm doing this. It's just much harder to get everyone on the same boat and rowing in the same direction.
Right.
Yeah, and I just want to make a point here. We've kind of talked about this on and off through various episodes, and this platform is done to educate and to inform and to hopefully entertain a little bit. It's not a CCK sales pitch, and so when Sarah makes a comment about having all that under one roof, that goes for anybody. It's you don't have to be at CCK to do that. Any kind of business owner that's might be listening and might be struggling with that, we're here just to confirm that that's out there. That's a real possibility, and it really benefits a business owner to have those elements under the same roof, whether that's with us or with someone else. It just helps bring the team together in a faster way, in a more diligent way, in a more powerful way. So, okay. Sure. So let's move into what we would call the life cycle. This is something that's been developed over the last year, and it's not just, bringing your stuff, we'll put it into QuickBooks and here's the report. We want to inform everyone on kind of the process that we go through, and we feel like it's good. Maybe they should find something similar with where they are. And you've already talked about phase one, the discovery step in a little bit of detail. But let's go back to that, John, and just kind of walk us through the discovery process. Like when a new client approaches us or you, the firm, what do you prioritize and how do you assess whether it's a good fit for us to work together?
Yeah, great question. It starts with a conversation. I think a lot of CAS practices, they will just say, hey, I'm glad you're interested. Send me your QuickBooks login, or, send us access to whatever it is, or send us your financials and we'll send you a quote. Right. And that's it. Like that is the kind of the discovery or the prospecting quoting process. We take a very different approach. If we're going to build a long-term relationship with our clients and truly be a trusted advisor, it has to be more in depth than just give us the basic information and we'll give you a quote and then we'll see if you think it's a good quote or not, and then we'll move forward. And so we do a full process that we call the discovery process. And it starts with a either hour or 90-minute conversation with the client, which sounds like it's overkill, but I have never ended a discovery call early with a client. Part of that is I'm curious by nature and I want to understand their business and get to know them a little bit. What we do in that discovery process is, yes, we'll get the information, we'll get the QuickBooks, we'll get their financials and kind of the basic stuff. But I think what makes CCK unique in our approach to it is we actually want to understand the goals of the business. We understand the people, the operations, like how all these different pieces play together. And so we have a framework that we use within discovery that we call SCOPE, which is another acronym. My team gives me hard times. I love acronyms, but SCOPE is an acronym.
Is it mouthwash?
Is what?
Is it mouthwash?
No, it's not. It's not.
I was thinking the same thing, Sarah. So
no, we're scoping out the services, so it fits perfectly for what we're doing.
Yes.
But SCOPE stands for financials. Long pause because that's not an S. Yeah.
We're going back to the
right.
Fs. F and S is not the same thing unless you're saying financial statements.
So we cheated. The S is actually a dollar sign.
That's right. I remember that.
Which stands for financials. So we cheated a little bit there. So financials, customers, operations, people, and then end goal. And what we do is we walk through each of those 5 areas of their business. And again, how many times do you talk to your bookkeeper and they're like, tell me about your customers? Honestly, not very often. You would think they should, because you want to understand, again, the life cycle of the customer, because that impacts what we do on the accounting side. If you don't understand how a client gets onboarded to or a customer gets onboarded to your client, and how they pay for their services, how they get invoiced, how that shows up in QuickBooks or on the bank statements, like all of those pieces are connected. And again, people don't take the time to understand that process. And then that ends up being, they get into the actual like accounting side of it, and they don't understand what they're doing or where things are coming from or anything like that. So what we actually do is we start from the end of it and work our way backwards. So the first thing I do when I'm talking to a new client is I'm asking about the end goal. What are we doing here, right? Why do you have this business? What are you trying to accomplish in the next 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever that timeline looks like for you? And what you find is you can scope your services differently based on what they're trying to accomplish. And I have to first stop before we go any further. This scope framework, I have to give credit where credit is due. There was another advisory professional named Jeannie Whitehouse, who I met at a conference. And she was the one who initially talked through this process. And so shout out to Jeannie. She gave us permission to use it, but I want to make sure she's getting credit for it.
Yeah.
We've taken it and tweaked it a little bit within CCK, but I have to pause and give credit where credit is due.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Jeannie.
Yes.
Thank you, Jeannie. And so we start with the end goal and kind of work our way backwards. So we're starting the conversation with, what are you trying to accomplish here? What does that look like in 5, 10, 3 years? Again, everyone's going to kind of have their own timeline. And what's interesting is when you hear a client say, hey, I want to pass this business on to my kids in the next 15 years versus I'm trying to sell this business in 6 months to a PE. Those are two very different approaches to how you can support that client. How you can structure the financial statements, what you want to prioritize, right? Like it's a very different service offering when you understand the end goal and what they're trying to do. So we start there. We start with the end goal. We understand the genesis of the business, right? Like what brought you here? We have a lot of clients who their parents started the business or even their grandparents started the business back in the 60s, 70s. And so it's also just really cool to understand the context in which we are stepping into this relationship, whether that's we started our business last year or we've been doing this for 50 years, but there's still a need that needs to be met. So
have you run across a client that just was like, I don't know what my end goal is?
Absolutely.
I mean, because if you're starting your whole discovery process of, hey, what's your end goal? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm just going day by day right now.
We have. And again, that's part of this process is adding value in the process itself. And so it's funny whenever we might come across that, which we have several times, they're like, that's a good question. I don't really know what I'm trying to do here. And I'm like, great. Like, we'll keep this conversation going, but maybe think about that and come back to us. And so it's a good way to spark some thought process for them, right? Because again, if you don't know where you're going and you're just kind of flippantly going through life and getting new customers, but you don't really have a target that you're shooting for. So every business should have.
I think that goes over a whole lot better, John, than saying, really? You don't know where you're going with that? But John,
most business owners too. I mean, really, they're just trying to make a living sometimes.
Right. Well, I mean, I really think that's it. I mean, I think they're like, they're thinking, I've got bills to pay. I've got to get my kids through school, and really not putting forethought into, I do want to sell this business, or I do want to pass this along to my kids. And that really should be the trajectory of how they operate day to day, not operate day to day to get to the end.
Right.
Start with the end in mind and work backwards. Yeah.
Exactly.
So John, when you go through this discovery process, what's the end product of this part of the cycle? What is it? A proposal? Is it a report? What is it?
Yeah, good question, Jeff. So we we start with the end goal. We go through the people involved in the business, the operations of, that's not really the financial operations. That's what's your actual business model? How do you make money? Because again, that impacts what we're going to see on the accounting side. And if we don't understand that, we can't do our job well. And then we talk through the customers, who they are, how big they are, how they get them. And then the financials is where we end with. And again, that's going to be talking through their financial statements, how many bank accounts are connected, their gross profit. And then again, in each of those different stages, we're also talking through what is the ideal state for each of these buckets. So your gross margin is currently 20%. What do you want it to be? Right. And then again, how can we help advise them on how to get there and help show them that information? But the end product, so what we do is we have the initial conversation. It's either an hour or 90 minutes, kind of depending on size of the business, complexity, all of that. And then what we do is we schedule the next meeting at the end of that meeting, which is important because when you're bringing on new clients, you can't let things stall out. And so booking that meeting from the end of the current meeting is useful. But in that follow-up meeting, we are delivering what we call our discovery report. And it is, here's what we heard. We go through the scope model again, the scope table. Here are the areas we think you're doing great. And that's something we want to do is highlight, here are some wins that you currently have. Because again, that doesn't often happen in discovery. You usually are only talking about what's not working. And it's important to, give your business owners you're working with a pat on the back and say, hey, y'all have run a successful business for 50 years. That's worth celebrating. That's awesome. That is not common. So we go through the scope process, and then we go through our recommendations. And we're very clear in that process. And whether this is with CCK or self-implemented or with another firm, we want you to have this, and we want you to get value from your time with CCK, even if it was only these 2 calls. And so we're talking through here's our recommendations. Here's the software we think you should implement. Here's, again, changes to, how you're booking depreciation, right? Like it can get pretty in the weeds depending on how the initial conversation went. Well, what we want to do is give them kind of a roadmap of help get you on track towards your end goal. Here are some things we recommend you implement. And then we do have a page after that where it's, hey, if you want to work with CCK and work with our team, here's our proposal and timeline and kind of how we would structure this project. But if not, you still have a roadmap of how to move forward and, again, start making progress towards your end goal. So we send them that. We tell them from the beginning, you're going to get a copy of this, and then we send them the follow-up report. And again, my goal in this process is whether they end up working with CCK and becoming a business partner of ours, or they say, thanks, but no thanks, y'all aren't a good fit. Regardless, they got value from that conversation. And I've had I have not had a single client go through discovery and say that was a waste of my time.
Yeah.
Everyone has said, hey, this was a valuable exercise and process. Some have said no. Some of it was pricing. Some of it was, they just had a better fit elsewhere. That's totally fine. But they've all said this was a valuable process.
So once you share that report and all those findings are communicated and they potentially look at the service proposal, they make a decision and they want to move forward with CCK or whoever, I'm assuming, you go this next step of onboarding. Yep. And what does a successful onboard look like in our practice?
Yeah. So obviously, it depends. That's the answer to everything, right? It depends. It depends on what was scoped out in the discovery process. So I'd say if I could put a very generic successful onboarding, it's we executed on the things we proposed in the discovery process. And that's going to look a little bit different for everyone. Right. For some people, that's going to be we're actually helping them transition from QuickBooks Desktop to QuickBooks Online, which we're actively doing right now with an excavating company. And some of it's going to be we're implementing different software and tools that's going to help with their expense management. Like there's a lot, it looks different for everyone, but successful onboarding is we did what we said we were going to do and did it in a timely manner and communicated proactively. And so at the end of that onboarding phase, the client says like, yes, you delivered on what you said you were going to deliver. And they're happy and engaged. And we actually do an NPS survey at the end of onboarding because we want to see, hey, how'd we do? What would we change? What could we change to make this a better experience for you?
And Jeff, what is NPS?
There you go. Another
It's net promoter score. And we have not had an episode on that yet, but it's coming up soon.
Foresight. Yes.
It's basically a way of letting us know where we're taking care of the client and where we're falling short of the client. Correct, John?
Yeah. It just asks a simple question of how likely are you to recommend our services to a friend or colleague? And they have to choose, 1 to 10. 9 and 10 are what are called promoters. 7 and 8, correct me if I'm wrong, Christy, I think this is it. 9 and 10 are promoters. 7 and 8 are neutral or passive. And then 6 and below are detractors. And there's a math equation from there to figure out, what your percentage of your respondents are promoters. So
yeah,
that's
the reason this is important in our situation is because successful onboarding, in our opinion, is not an email that says, give us access to your QuickBooks Online. Then you don't hear from us for 2 months and we get emails about, when's my stuff going to be getting done? It's that interaction. And really, I guess through the discovery process, you've uncovered the fact that the client wants that type of interaction. It wants that kind of relationship. And so then it's up to us to deliver it, basically. Right.
Yeah. And if a client is like, hey, I don't want to meet and talk regularly, then they're just not a good fit for us. Because that's not a advisory relationship. That's a commodity. I just need to get this done. Right. And there are firms who will do that. And that's great. That is not the approach we want to take. We want to have that
Bottom line is
relationship.
that a prospective client's probably not going to want to pay our rates for that type of commodity service at the end of the day.
Right.
Yeah.
But Jeff, we actually, in the onboarding phase, we set up a biweekly meeting with the client. And so we're building structure into that process of, hey, every 2 weeks we're talking to you and we're going over what's been done. We're talking through what's coming next. We're answering any questions you have and vice versa. No doubt we're going to have questions based on what we're discovering in the onboarding phase. So it is
meeting. Yeah, that meeting keeps everybody accountable too.
Exactly.
Because it isn't just the firm doing the work. I mean, there's going to be some back and forth element to it because the client is going to, or the business owner is going to be responsible for some items to do as well. So if you're meeting regularly, you don't want to come to me and be like, I didn't do nothing today for the last 2 weeks.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And I will say that is a radically different approach than what most of our clients are used to. We have so many clients that come our way who say, I never hear from my accountant. I email them. They don't answer me for weeks. So unfortunately, just that proactive communication is not a strong suit of your typical CPA. And that's where we're building into the structure of how we're servicing our clients some safeguards. And again, that accountability, that's a great word, Sarah, to not let that happen.
Mm-hmm.
So, John, we've discovered, we've onboarded. Now we move into the third phase of the reoccurring advisory. And I've seen this referred to as the heart of the CAS work.
Yep.
What do you mean by that statement? And how is this area different, the way we do it versus what may take place at other firms?
Yeah. So the recurring advisory, that's the bread and butter of what we do. We're executing on what the engagement letter outlined we are doing on a monthly basis or quarterly for some instances, but usually monthly. And so again, that could be helping with their accounts payable. That could be, again, the bookkeeping side. That could be financial statement prep, oversight. There's a lot of different avenues of what that could be, again, based on what we discovered in the discovery process and how do we meet those needs that the client has. But the important thing for us is in that recurring advisory phase, we're executing on those things. But then again, we are meeting with our clients every month to talk through, here's what happened in the previous month. Here are the questions we have based on, we didn't have the context for, we weren't sure about this. So let's have that conversation, not just make assumptions about what's going on in your business if we don't know. But then it's also, here's the trajectory we're on. Here's how we're trending towards your sales goal for the year, that KPI we set out in the discovery process. So again, it's just a consistent touch point to say, here's how we're doing and here's where we're going. But again, the differentiator with CCK is we have that monthly meeting set with the client coming out of onboarding. And again, that is unique in a lot of CAS practices and just accounting practices in general.
John, I have a quick question based on what I'm hearing. The not CAS, CCK CAS, but big picture client advisory services. When a business owner is listening to our conversation, if I were thinking, I'd be thinking, okay, I get it. I hear it. What's in it for me? Big picture, if you could deliver one thing, what's in it for me?
Yeah. Gracie, I think that goes into the vision behind what we're doing in CAS. So one of the first things we did when I got to CCK was outline a vision statement for our team. What are we doing? What's our vision? How do we service clients well? And what we outlined, collectively as a team was we want to help empower business leaders to make better financial decisions. And so ultimately that's what's in it for them. In that recovery or recurring advisory phase and in the review phase we'll get to here in a second, ultimately our goal is we're helping them make better financial decisions to move their business forward. So that's what they get with that high touch engagement. And again, that looks different for everyone. For most of those clients, we have some dashboarding set up. We have some, again, visualizing their data so they can understand what's happening. Because you could have the cleanest books in the world, but if you as a business leader don't understand what it's telling you and how to act on it, then it's not useful, right? It's not useful for running the business. It's useful for doing your taxes or whatever the other use cases are, but it's not useful for the day in, the day out. What decisions do I need to be making as a business leader to move my business forward.
And I think as we've been talking through this, John, you've been talking about the various levels of CAS work. And just because someone gets the monthly financial statements from their provider doesn't mean it's bad. It just means that it may be what works for that person. But I think the purpose of this discussion is to let everyone know there's a bigger, brighter tomorrow out there related to this kind of work, that if you feel like the product you're getting, the commodity you're getting is not working, there are other options out there to help run and manage a business is what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so we've done the work, we've introed, we discovered, we onboarded, we did the work, and then we come to the final step, which is the review. So how often are you reviewing and refining these engagements with our clients, John?
So the review phase happens on a quarterly basis. And so you can really break down the engagement where monthly you're meeting to talk through the prior month, and to, again, talk through the financials. Quarterly, you're doing that same thing, but you're looking back to the previous quarter. So, hey, what happened in Q1, right? How did we do against our target metrics, whether that's sales or gross profit or net income, whatever it is. And part of that review cycle is also, yes, it's looking back at the prior quarter and kind of doing a bigger picture advisory meeting. But what we also do in that conversation is say, are you getting from us what you thought you were going to be getting? Are we delivering on the value we promised? And then vice versa, if there's stuff that we are not getting from our clients that we need to do our job successfully, that's the avenue for us to talk through that. So it's meant to be on a quarterly basis, we're having a come to Jesus, if you will, right? If there is anything that we need to come to Jesus about, but we're reestablishing the relationship and making sure it's on track. Oftentimes what happens in a service environment is that doesn't happen until the client is so unhappy that they send an email saying, yeah, hey, I'm done. I'm disengaging.
Yeah.
And then we all scramble and we say, oh no, what happened? How do we get this back on track? And usually it's too late at that point. So again, to avoid that, we're building into the structure of our delivery model a quarterly touch point where we can outline, here's what we're not getting. Here's the pain points you still have, or the issues you have with how we're doing our jobs. And we are open to feedback and we want to adapt and change and meet those needs. So that happens on a quarterly basis, Jeff. And again, it's a combination of what happened in the prior quarter, how do we look forward, but then also, is our relationship still on track with where we want it to be?
You use the term relationship. That's not only the relationship that we have with the client, but we haven't addressed this, but you develop a team internally that works with our clients. So it's not like they're working with different people every month and getting different insight. Ideally, it's the same team and it's the same teammate that we have that you're working with on a monthly or quarterly basis. And that person gets to know you even more and beyond that discovery phase.
Right, for sure.
Okay, I have a question.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yes. I've been listening to this. I mean, obviously, I think I'm biased. I think it's a great service that we provide. I think it builds, like you've been saying, relationship. It builds trust, and it builds, and then it also provides advisory service. What keeps a business owner from just hiring somebody internally? Why would they? I mean, what's the difference between putting somebody in place that is, from probably a business owner standpoint of, in their mind, like, I have somebody in-house every single day and I can tell them what to do. And
Yep.
and what keeps them from using or hiring somebody versus using us and having that third party, and I'm going to put a little spoiler, second set of eyes out there.
Yep. So I was going to say two things come to mind for me. One is cost and size of the business. So a lot of clients we work with, they're not big enough to have a full-time CFO or a full-time senior accountant or controller. And so that's where we can come alongside them and do that for them. So they're not big enough to have one of those full-time or to be able to afford someone full-time who has the skill sets to do that. But they're big enough where they need those types of services. And so again, that's where... Mm-hmm.
No, I was going to say, I'm sorry, because I wanted to hone in on the price, the cost,
Right.
because I've heard you say, some people kind of balk at the price when we give them a quote for advisory services. But some things to think about, like you said, they may not be able to afford a full-time person to do those things for them. And when that's full-time, you're thinking salary, health insurance costs, retirement contributions, payroll tax, employer payroll tax, all of those things. So I kind of just wanted to put a plug out there too. Like, hey, our services are worth it. And it comparatively,
right.
It is it's more cost benefit.
Right. And the question to ask is like, compared to what, right? Like you're too expensive. Compared to what? Compared to a full-time person? I highly doubt it.
Yeah.
Compared to this other firm, okay, that's a different conversation, right? And they may be a better fit for you, and that's great. But are they going to provide the level of service that we're going to provide? Let's talk about that. But when it's compared to someone full-time, I highly doubt that we are going to be more expensive.
Right.
Especially when you're talking controller level, CFO level. That is not cheap to hire a good CFO or a good controller to help you run your business. So first one, Sarah, is size of the business, cost, all of that. The second one is the expertise, right? Mm-hmm. If you have someone in-house who is a controller, and they may be a great controller, and they're doing some of these things for you, that's great. They may be excellent. They may be doing the stuff you need them to be doing. They may not have the expertise or the breadth of knowledge to help you understand what you can do differently or to implement different softwares that's going to make your life better. And so the benefit of working with an outsourced firm is we talk to so many different clients, different industries. We just have a bigger breadth of knowledge. And there's 14 people within CAS. There's 130 plus within CCK holistically. And so if I don't have the experience in any certain area, someone else does at CCK. And that's, again, going back to what we talked about earlier, Sarah, that's the benefit of having all of those services in one location is, again, there's that synergy across the firm. If, I can go to Jeff and ask him about an area of expertise he has that I don't know much about. And so if you have only your in-house person doing that, you just don't get that scope and that breadth of knowledge that you get working with a firm.
Nice.
Well, John, as we start wrapping up on this process and this topic, I wanted to ask you a couple final questions, just kind of about this process, the industry, and things of that nature. I know you have years and years and years of experience in CAS, but with the research you've been doing and the leadership you've been providing and the different things you've heard and read, where do you see CAS evolving in the next 3 to 5 years? Is this where we're going to end, or is it going someplace different?
So AI gets talked about a lot these days, and it's going to continue to impact how we do our jobs. I think CAS is going to be more and more and more tech forward that creates efficiencies for the people delivering the services. And so where I see the true skill set long-term that is needed to be successful, it's the relational side. It's, can you effectively communicate with your clients, right? Again, you can have the cleanest books in the world and have all the right data in front of you, but if you don't know how to communicate that to your clients to where they are motivated and influenced and inspired to make changes, then you're not really being an advisor. You're just kind of putting information in front of them. So one thing that we're doing within CAS here is everything we're doing and building towards long-term is that skill set of how do you communicate effectively? How do you build a structure that facilitates strong relationships, right? And we talked a lot about kind of we're asking a lot of our clients to meet with us monthly and quarterly and bi-weekly during onboarding. That's, again, that is an ask and that's a commitment from the client too. But to me, that's going to be the differentiator, and that's going to be where CAS is going in the future, is moving more and more into that advisory side of the business and not just being good technical accountants who are providing an outsourced service.
Right.
So what is the call to action on this episode, John? If I'm a business owner and I'm listening and this sounds interesting to me, but I'm not exactly sure what it all means or how it impacts me, what advice would you give a business owner as it relates to their consideration of client advisory service offerings?
Just do it.
Just trademark.
Don't
sue us, Nike.
Yes. Sorry, John. Go ahead. That was just my catty answer.
I like it. I think it's have a conversation with your CPA, right? See if there is a higher level offering that they can provide that's going to empower you as the business leader with the information you need to run your business well. That's the biggest thing. And it's thinking through, what is my wish list? What is my magic wand? If I were to change anything in my business as it relates to accounting and finance and operations and understanding my business so that I can move it forward towards that end goal, what are those things? And am I getting that? And if I'm not, then again, having that conversation with your current provider, if you have one, and saying, can you do this for me? Because I want to run my business more effectively, and I need this information in front of me to be able to do that. And if you don't have that person in place, then talking to CCK, a different firm locally, whoever it is, but start the conversation and say, hey, I'd love to know what it looks like to implement some of these things, to have better visibility into my financials on a consistent, timely basis so I can make decisions based on it. But again, it's just starting that conversation. And here elsewhere, it's an important conversation to have.
And it just so happens, John, that we have a vehicle for that communication. They could email us at podcast@cckcpa.com. If anyone,
good time, Jeff, I like it.
Yeah, I'm just, just trying to make it roll. But if you are a business owner and you think that what we've been talking about is something that you need, definitely email us at podcast@cckcpa.com. We can get you in touch with John. You can have a conversation. If you are in the industry and this sounds interesting to you as a potential teammate of ours, give us a holler. Email us at podcast@cckcpa.com. We would love to talk to you. And I guess one of the last comments I want to make, John, is it relates to the work we could potentially do with somebody. I would say gone are the days where the CPA or the accountant has to be across the street and in that locality. I mean, it's all technology these days. We have Zoom or Teams calls. It's like you're right down the road anyway. And if you'll just speak as we close kind of how we've embraced technology and how we use those things.
Well, I think I'm a great example because I was hired in Fort Worth to lead the CAS division, where most of my team is based in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which is about a 5-hour drive for people who are not familiar with North Texas and Oklahoma.
You drive slow.
Geography. Hey,
I would love 4 hours. Come on.
To Frisco,
please don't challenge her to a race. Please,
I would love
please
that.
don't.
My sister, shout out to my sister who also listens to this podcast. She lives in Justin, and I can get to her house in 4 hours.
All right. Yeah, but no. So Jeff, we embrace it partly with just the remote and virtual nature of how we work with our clients. I don't have many Fort Worth clients. So I'm working with people in Oklahoma, in the Dallas side of the Metroplex, other parts of Oklahoma. Actually, we have one in Oregon that we just started onboarding with.
That's awesome.
And so it's, in today's environment, your service provider can be anywhere. Again, it's more about how do you trust them, right? That's the biggest thing with starting a relationship is, can I trust them? And are they going to ask me the right questions so we can map out what has to happen to deliver on this? But that, Jeff, and then again, there's a lot of cool technologies these days. QBO, Ramp, Zero, Fathom, Reach. Like there's all kinds of technology that helps us deliver these services that, again, you do not have to be in person to get great value.
Yeah. And I think the most important thing you said there, John, is, again, it goes back to relationship and trust. People work with people that they know, like, and trust. I'm biased as well, but I can vouch for John. He's just, he cares about the work he does. He cares about his teammates, and he cares about that client relationship. And so, again, if you have an interest in anything that we're talking about, whether it's about CAS or just this podcast that in general, email us at podcast@cckcpa.com. John, thank you so much for joining us today, for sharing your expertise. But before we go, there is one last segment we have to do called
Rapid fire.
Sarah with the voices today.
Yeah, we actually did a voiceover. I'm not sure if it's playing yet or not, but it'll be good. once we get
It'll
it
be
on.
good. Yes.
Yeah.
We started with British and ended up with whatever that was. I don't know.
Remember that one?
Yes.
So,
All right, John.
Sarah.
This is our segment where we just some really quick questions just to get to know a little bit
All right.
of
Hit me.
different side of you. All right. So first up, easy. Fruits or veggies?
Fruits.
Nice. All right. What was your favorite childhood cartoon?
Oh man, I did not watch a lot of cartoons growing up, if I'm being honest.
Oh, come on.
I'll go with SpongeBob SquarePants, but
Yes. All right. All right. I won't ask you to say
Christy and I
something.
answer that one.
Yes. Do it. Do it.
Hong Kong
Hong Kong
Phooey.
Phooey.
Okay.
all
I
right,
don't
you guys
know
just
what
aged
that
yourself
is.
because I have no idea what that is.
I have no idea what it is either.
It would never
Let's just close with
last
the
on today. Yeah. All right. Sorry.
That's awesome. No, that's awesome. All right. If you had a superpower, what would it be?
Flying. I think flying would be so fun.
Ah, Superman.
And
All
I
right.
could cut down my trip to Tulsa significantly instead of 5 hours.
Instead of slow. Yes, for sure. For sure. What did you want to be when you grew up? Since you were keeping your options open.
Yeah, right. Honestly, at one point, president.
Awesome. All right.
That may be like a professional football player, but alas, I ended up as an accountant. So here we are.
It's all good. It's all good. All right. Last one. What was the last TV show you binged?
What did we just finish? My wife and I just finished SWAT not too long ago, which is
Okay.
7 or 8 seasons long. So there was plenty of content to get through.
Nice. And what medium is on? Because I haven't heard of SWAT.
It's on Netflix.
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 Okay. What's the quick premise of it? It sounds like it's
a SWAT team.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
SWAT team
good.
based in
Okay.
LA.
Good name.
But,
Good name.
Yeah, it's crazy how they came up with that.
Right.
It's creative.
it's
That's
funny. You can sit there every night and watch 1 or 2 episodes of something for 3 months. And then when someone asks you what's the last show you binged, you go, oh, I can't remember. So,
I mean, I literally blanked. I was
SpongeBob.
like, what did we just finish?
SpongeBob. Look
it
up
was
Hong
not
Kong
Hong
Phooey.
Kong Phooey.
I'm sure Hong Kong Phooey's on Netflix or something. Well, John, again, thank you for joining us today. We appreciate your time. We appreciate your expertise and everything that you're doing. As we close, again, our email address, podcast@cckcpa.com. Drop us a note. Let us know if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or ideas for future shows. We want to thank CCK Strategies for being our sponsor, for allowing us this medium to market and to share and to have fun with. To Christy, thank you as always for the insight you provide. To Robert Mays for his music. To Clarence Fisher, Tulsa Internet Marketing Services for helping us get through these episodes and the editing. And then to our own Natalie Renfro and Emily Johansson, some of our teammates that do a lot of work behind the scenes. Thank you so much, behind the scenes, not the C's, for all their work. So with that, we're going to close up. Thank you again for joining us today. Join us next time when these 2 CPAs get together to have a chat and you get to find out who's on the mic.
The information provided on this podcast is for general informational and educational purposes only and does not constitute accounting, tax, legal, or financial advice. While we strive to provide accurate and up-to-date information, laws and regulations change and individual circumstances vary. Always consult with a qualified CPA or professional advisor before making any financial or business decisions. The views expressed by the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of any organizations they are affiliated with. Listening to this podcast does not create a client-accountant relationship. By listening to this podcast, you acknowledge and agree to those terms. And that's a wrap for this episode of 2 CPAs in the Mic. If you found today's episode helpful, please subscribe, share, and leave us a review. Have questions or ideas for a topic? Reach out. We'd love to hear from you. Email us at podcast@cckcpa.com.